So, what do you do when it feels like the world is ending? I mean, it's a question a lot of us are asking ourselves these days. Today, we're going to dive into a really thoughtful and I think ultimately hopeful answer from the writer Dougald Hind. It's all about learning how to act wisely, right in the middle of these huge, overwhelming times.
Right off the bat, Hinnett gives us this powerful way to reframe that end-of-the-world feeling. What he's suggesting is, it's not about some big physical apocalypse. It's about something way more subtle, but just as huge. The end of a worldview, the end of the story we've all been telling ourselves about how the world works.
And that brings us to our first big idea here, the end of a story. So what does that actually mean, to be living through the end of a big, dominant narrative? Let's really break down what he means by an end of a way of knowing.
Okay, this is the crucial part. This end of a way of knowing is what happens when our big stories, the ones about constant progress, about being in control, about what's important, when they all start to fall apart at the seams. It's this moment of deep, profound uncertainty where the old maps just don't work anymore.
And this is where our work really begins. The whole focus shifts. It's not about desperately trying to patch up a system that's failing. Instead, it's an invitation to thoughtfully participate in whatever is emerging. The question becomes, how can we, with care and intention, show up for what's next?
So how do we actually do that? Well, Heinen gives us two really important roles we can play. The first one is what he calls hospicing a dying world. And it's exactly what it sounds like. It's the compassionate work of letting go of what's already passing away.
This hospice work really has two main jobs. The first is to help give our current era, you could call it modernity, a good ending. To let it pass on its lessons and its gifts, the kinds of things you can only really see clearly when something is closing. And the second part? Well, that's on us. It's to make sense of it all for ourselves, to process and truly understand this massive shift we're living through.
I love this idea of leaving behind good ruins. It's this thought that even as things are ending, we have a responsibility. We can choose to leave behind things of real value, wisdom, tools, stories, things that can act as clues or starting points for the people who come after us, for the world that we can't even imagine yet.
Now, balancing all of that hospice work is the second role, the act of midwifery. This is the other side of the coin, really. It's where we turn our attention completely toward the future and focus on what is trying to be born. So being a midwife for the future, it means helping something new and maybe a little unfamiliar to arrive. And a huge part of this is humility. It's about recognizing that we can't just force our old ideas and our old expectations onto this new thing. We have to let it be what it's going to be.
And this right here, this is the huge shift in perspective we need. The old world had a really rigid idea of what mattered, what was significant. To help midwife a new world, we have to start valuing the very things that system ignored. The things that thought were too small, like our local communities and relationships, and the things that thought were too big, like our connection to the cosmos and to spirit.
Once you start thinking on those different scales, it naturally leads you to the next step, actively reweaving the connections that the old story broke apart. It's about moving from an obsession with giant systems to a focus on real, living relationships.
And you can see the whole transformation laid out here, right? We're moving from trusting in these huge, impersonal systems to centering real, human-sized encounters. We're shifting from trying to secure some imaginary future to just practicing acts of hospitality and friendship right now. And maybe most importantly, we're moving from seeing only a human world to recognizing we live in a world of many worlds.
And that's such a core piece of this reweaving. It's not just about connecting with other people. It is about remembering our place in the entire web of life. It's about finally acknowledging that the more than human world, the animals, the plants, the rivers, they aren't just scenery. They are a vital, living part of our reality.
And this quote, wow, it just says it all, doesn't it? It's a powerful invitation to see ourselves as members of this much, much bigger community of beings, and to start acting with the kind of respect and curiosity that a worldview like that requires.
Okay, so we talked about hospicing the old, midwifing the new, reweaving our connections. So where does all this work land us? It all leads right here, to this deeply personal, deeply ancient task of just finding our place again.
What a beautiful way to put it, learning to dance again with the rhythms of cosmology. It's this idea of reconnecting with the great cycles of time, with the stories in the stars, with the patterns of nature, all of these rhythms that are so much older and so much bigger than the story that's ending right now. And Heine, drawing on the mythographer Martin Shaw, really clarifies what this dance feels like. It's about letting yourself be carried by stories that give meaning and order to everything. This is how a random, chaotic universe transforms into a meaningful, interconnected cosmos, a place where we actually have a role to play.
And that, really, is the ultimate destination here. It's not about building a new system to replace the old one. It's about coming home. It's about remembering that we already belong to a story that is so much bigger and more ancient than the one that's falling apart around us. We were always a part of it.
So I want to leave you with this question to carry with you. Because in the midst of all this huge historical change, the real work, it begins right here, in the present moment. What is one small, human-scaled encounter you can build your world around today? How might a simple act of friendship or connection or hospitality become the tiny seed from which a new world can actually grow?